Welcome to the NoBS Podcast, the gaming news podcast where we ditch the sugarcoating and give it to you straight. I'm Blake.
And I'm Steve.
And if you're looking for real talk without the BS, you've come to the right place. Before we jump in, don't forget to stay connected with us. Follow us on X at NoBS Podcast GG for all the latest updates and hot takes. Check out our YouTube channel at NoBS Podcast GG and be sure to hit that subscribe button. We're also on TikTok at NoBS Podcast GG throughout the week, so make sure to stop on by and say what's up. Love what you're hearing? Show your support by liking this episode, dropping a comment with your thoughts, and subscribing to keep up with all our future content. This week we focus on WoW's Guild Bank fiasco, the possibility of Ubisoft going private, Destiny 2 Revenant launch trailer, Overwatch Mobile, and Blizzard, the Steam store that could have been. Alright, let's cut to the BS and get into today's episode. Welcome everyone to the NoBS Podcast. I hope everyone's been having a great week, and to hop into things, how's your week been, Steve, and any games you've been playing recently?
It's been pretty good so far. Like I've been playing a lot of the new Dragon Ball Sparking Zero game.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say
I haven't had a whole lot of time to game this week. Work has been pretty hectic, but I think every hour that I have been gaming has been spent on playing this game. I can't get enough. It's so much fun. I love it.
You bought the premium one, right? The $119 one?
I bought the middle one, the $99 version. But again, like they already kind of released a like updates of what's going to happen, a roadmap.
Yeah.
Per se, and it's 100% worth the cost of admission. I would have probably paid more, to be honest.
So it's definitely lived up to the hype.
It's a lot of fun. It's kind of like how we were talking about before. It's different. It's not your standard arena fighter where you could play with any character and have fun. Like there are some characters that are extremely overpowered. The story isn't anything new. You're reliving some of the classic Dragon Ball Z stories. There's opportunities to shift some stuff around, but for the most part, it's all the same stuff. So everyone that's been a fan of Dragon Ball, you already know what's going to happen. But again, it's so much fun, and the abilities look so cool when you do your big ultimate ability. It's insane. I love it.
So you can tell that they put a lot of effort into it. Now they were talking about how there's supposed to be like cutscenes between like certain fights and stuff like that. So like, was that true?
Yeah.
Was it really good though?
I've had a blast. Like I'm thoroughly enjoying every minute that I spend playing this game, whether it's playing with friends. One of the really cool things that they do is when you play with friends, like say you're playing with 4 people, it's 1v1, so only 2 people can be fighting each other at the same time.
Yeah.
But the other 2 people could sit there and watch your fight as you're going, and it's winner stays on. So every time you win, you get to fight the next person, and if you lose, the other person stays on, and it just kind of continues like that. So it creates some time for some good times for sure.
So, like, when you do the 1v1s, is it, because you were telling me about, like, you know, obviously, like, certain characters are stronger than others. Like, do you feel that when you go into a 1v1? So, do you kind of, like, is there, like, counter-picking to everybody? Or is it, like, everybody, is it more of, like a Street Fighter kind of thing where everybody is kind of balanced in, like, a 1v1? Or how does that work?
There's no balance whatsoever. This again, like this game is crazy. Like if you have one of the, so every character has a ranking basically. It goes from 1 to 10, 10 being the strongest. If you do ranked online matches, your max team power level can only be 15.
Okay.
So that means you have to figure out how to balance a team out. You could have up to five team or 5 members, and that's your team. But you can go as low as 1 if you wanted to, and you can go as high as 5. But again, you have to kind of stick to that 15 max.
Okay.
So if you have a level 10 character going up against a level 1 character,
the 10's gonna win, right?
Yeah, unless the level 1 person is just like cracked out. And there's like a meme going around where it's like if you lose to Hercule, who's like one of the weakest characters in the game and in the universe, to just uninstall the game.
Already with the toxicity.
Yeah. And it is what it is, because he's literally the weakest character in the verse, and it's like has no strengths of feet or feats of strength. But it's so funny when you see these videos online of just people just getting clowned by this character, and that's why I don't have any intention to play ranked.
Yeah,
I'm just playing with my friends and playing the story mode. It's a lot of fun to play with my friends. And I'm happy with that. Like, this game is going to be something that's in rotation for me and my friends, my friend group that I play these games with for a very long time.
I know you've been sending me a ton of like TikTok videos about it, like just how like popular it is. It kind of seems like it's almost like a sports game in the sense that like if you're playing, Madden, and it's like if you're playing, let's just say the Chiefs against like the Cleveland Browns, like if you lose to the Browns as the Chiefs, like, yeah, you should probably just uninstall. So you kind of got to know, who's who and who does what.
Yeah, and the difference too though is like there's like, yeah, you can tell a difference between like a good team in Madden and a bad team in Madden. Yeah. But I just feel like anyone that's like decent enough, if you're better than, say, like me and you play and you're better than me at Madden, and I'm playing as the Chiefs, and I'm playing as the Chiefs and you're playing as like the Panthers or something, more than likely you're probably still going to win.
Yeah.
But this game, it's like there's so much that goes into it, and it's so complex. And it was funny because the first day I was watching a bunch of people play it, and then watching videos the next day of people struggling to beat some of the bosses, where it's like they were calling it like the Dark Souls of fighting games.
Well, you can't have it like super easy where everybody's beating your game in like a couple hours, right?
Yeah. But it's kind of a challenge. There's definitely some boss fights where I had to kind of lock in and figure out exactly how to manage these fights, because it was pretty tough.
That sounds awesome. I maybe I need to pick it up. I've never been a huge Dragon Ball player, but it sounds like I've read lots of reviews. I've seen tons of videos, and it definitely seems like some that would be very fun. So I've been playing. This week has been a little kind of hectic for me. I mean, I'm going on vacation tomorrow, so I've been kind of getting everything ready for that. I have put a little bit of time into Throne of Liberty, and I've kind of honestly stopped playing it. There was a video going around, basically showing like how bad the botting is already for like materials, and people are already manipulating their auction house. So it kind of put me off a little bit. Now there was a meme going around too with the developers of this game. I can't remember what the other game was that they made. But basically, like, they don't really do anything to the bots. So it's like you saw like this guy was like running to a node with like 50 different characters, and it just kind of put me off on it for a little bit. So but besides that, there's this game that I've been playing a little bit of. Brett actually told me about it, who's my brother, called Off the Grid. Now, according to their description of this, so it's developed by Gunzilla Games. It is a quote-unquote cyberpunk battle royale, so this might be right up your alley, Steve. And it's currently in early access, and it's available on the Epic Games Store, and it's on all platforms. Now, my first thoughts on the game were, oh, look, another battle royale game. But it was actually a lot different than your normal BR. So you play almost like a half robot, half human kind of thing, where your arms and legs are detachable. And like by that I mean it's like, yeah, you have like your normal loot, and like any kind of battle royale, you got your loot crates and all that stuff. But throughout these loot crates, different arms and different legs drop in there, and like each of them give you like certain power-ups. Like there's certain legs that give you the ability to run super fast, and there's like an arm that you can pick up that you can do like an airstrike with it. So it's pretty interesting, to say the least. Now I will say too that the game was pretty glitchy for the few hours that I played the first time, but I have been told that it's actually not so bad right now. Like I said, the game is in early access, and I'm kind of torn on whether or not this game will really have any success, because, or if it'll just fall, into the sea of hundreds of other battle royale games that have come and gone over the past few years. It is pretty hard to compete with Fortnite and Warzone. But after seeing, just how bad the new Call of Duty is looking and how like uninterested a lot of people are, I think that the game could be a top contender. Now, the shooting itself does feel like a Call of Duty shooter, but you're third person. And my favorite thing about like how it shoots is the time to kill. So like that was like the big thing that I didn't like about Warzone, and even like Fortnite. It felt sometimes like it took too long to kill somebody. Like you had to empty like an entire magazine into someone to kill them, but you felt like you were getting killed with like 2 bullets. The time to kill is surprisingly low. Now there is one thing I wasn't a fan of, and that was kind of how the dropping in felt. So normally in like these other BRs, you're parachuting in, you're gliding in. So this is almost like you're Iron Manning in, right? Like your body itself is just falling in, and it wasn't really smooth at all. So you're actually controlling the person as he's dropping in, and the body is just kind of moving all over the place. It's very hard to control it. And my biggest gripe, and I've said this with a lot of these games that I've talked about, is they're already offering paid skins and a battle pass in an early access game. Now, I think that... here, you go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say, and it's not just paid skins. I guess you can buy guns and gear that can impact the way the game is played. And that's kind of one of the negative things, too, that you always kind of can potentially encounter in these free-to-play games.
Well, we talked about before, like, you shouldn't be... It's okay to, like, put, buy skins and stuff like that, cosmetics, but these guns and stuff like that shouldn't be locked behind a paywall. Yeah, and my thing, too, is, like, when these games are releasing, again, especially, like, early access, like, to shove that down somebody's throat and when it's still in development, I think is a very shady move. It's like... To me, I felt like you guys put a lot of priority into making sure your battle pass, in your store was up and running well, but then you slacked on the game's performance and didn't make it as smooth as possible for your early access release.
I don't necessarily mind having a battle pass in early access, especially because they're still working on the game, and they're still, more than likely, they're probably still kind of trying to get funding to finish the game.
Yeah.
And this is just a way for people that enjoy the game to support it and allow the developers to continue working on it. You kind of have come to an understanding when you're playing these early access games that you're going to encounter some sort of bugs and issues playing the game, and it's just part of the game.
No, I agree, but I haven't read anything on this yet. I don't know if what you get from the battle pass, if it will actually like carry over to when the game fully released, because that would be pretty crappy to spend the $10 or $15 on their battle pass and then not get it when the game comes out. So I'm not going to really speak on that just because I don't want to put out the wrong information. But yeah, I mean, I could agree that buying the battle pass would help them with their funding. So to hop into our first segment, there has been a big old fiasco going on in World of Warcraft after the release of the patch 11.0.2 that came out on August 13th. And what had happened was there was a massive amount of guilds whose guild banks had been completely wiped or were missing a huge amount of gold. Now, those who play World of Warcraft know that guilds are like the biggest social aspect of the game, right? A lot of people are in guild. If you're wanting to raid or do mythics, it's a lot easier, if you're with the guild. And there's a lot of guilds that have been around since vanilla. So to have like the amount of time and effort that went into stocking these guild banks and building it up to see it vanish, has to be heartbreaking, to those affected by it. I was reading in the same article that there was like a 75-year-old woman who plays, and she had her guild bank stocked with like pets and toys and other stuff like that she was giving away to new players and guildies. And to lose all that stuff after how many ever years of farming that stuff had to have sucked. Now, it originally did seem like the WoW devs were just sweeping it under the rug, as it took them over a month to even respond to the situation. And when they did talk about it, there were only a few cases where some guilds were even getting a handful of their items back, but none of them have gotten everything back as they lost. So what had actually happened too was during their maintenance process, when they were putting in this patch, they encountered a unexpected bug which has caused this massive wipeout. And Blizzard has come forward and pretty much said like there's really nothing that can be done, and they were reached out to for a comment about it, and they're declining to comment. They put like a little post out saying, we understand everything's going on, but there's really not a whole lot. They've even said like there's really not much we can do. So how do you feel about this going on, and like how would you be freaking pissed if this was you? Spend all this time into stocking up this bank and just have it wiped out?
It's definitely frustrating, and I know people that have guilds just as a guild bank. Before the warband thing was implemented, you were kind of capped out to how much gold and how many items you can keep in your own personal bank. And these guild banks allowed people to kind of just keep more money or keep more gold and more items, and
Yeah.
just make it a lot easier for them to transfer between your different characters. And again, like WoW has been around for like 20 years, since 2005.
Yeah, their 20th anniversary is, I believe, next month.
Yeah, there's people that have been playing this game since 2005 and have been farming these materials and mounts and pets and all that stuff since the game was started. And just imagine if like some mounts that you have Ashes of Alara, one of the rarest mounts in the game. Just imagine you like logged in and it just wasn't there anymore.
I'd be so pissed, dude. I'd be pissed.
It's like something that just takes so long to grind and to get, and it's like you spend time, and time is the most valuable thing that we have, and we decide to play this game to kind of to enjoy ourselves. And these little things may not mean much to Blizzard, but to the people that farm them and earn them and collect them, it's a lot. And it's very frustrating the way Blizzard is handling it. And I understand it's a lot, and it's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of guilds that experience this issue. But they have logs, they have guild logs that you can see what was put in and what was taken out. And it's probably relatively easy for Blizzard to go in there and see what was in there, or what was put in there, and what was basically disappeared without being removed physically by a person.
Yeah, well, they were saying too, like the people that were getting items, like the items were getting sent to the guild leader. So if you were in a guild that the guild leader wasn't active, but the co-GMs and stuff like that were, you had no way of even getting those items back. So in a situation like this, like, what do you think Blizzard should do to ratify it? Or do you think it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, sorry about your luck, but let's move on, and then they're going to hope that everybody forgets about this in a few months?
They should just figure out a way to find out every item that was removed and put it back in the bank.
But do you think that's really possible, though? Or do you think it's like...
Oh, 100%. Like,
do you think they can go back to, August 12th, the day before the patch, and be like, okay, this is what was in those banks?
Well, Blizzard, I'm pretty confident that Blizzard has some sort of system that is logging everything that is going on in the game. That's kind of how they're able to kind of find these bots and people buying gold through third-party companies. Is they've kind of identified things that they look for, and they have a system that's kind of constantly tracking. Same thing if you post something in world chat or into a private message that's inappropriate, like they have ways to kind of figure out what's going on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I don't know if you've ever had your account hacked and people just take all your gear and just sell it, and you're kind of left with nothing. There's ways to recover that. There's ways to recover your character.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. There's item restoration.
Yeah, so there's definitely ways that Blizzard can do it. I'm sure it's probably a lot of work because of how much impact and how many guilds were probably affected by it.
Yeah.
So it's probably a lot of work that Blizzard just doesn't want to spend the time on. And I think it's just a big like middle finger to the people that play this game. That the organization just doesn't care. Like, just imagine like your personal bank, where you get paid, you have all your money, and all of a sudden everything just disappears, and your bank is like, oh well, sorry, we don't know how much money you have in there.
Here, we know you had $10,000, but here's $100 to get you by.
yeah, because like there's people that had like I was watching a video earlier of some lady who she's been playing since 2005. She farmed a bunch of materials that you can't get anymore because this was pre-Cataclysm, pre the world change, and there's like gear that you can craft that's only craftable with these specific materials, and now they're just completely gone, and Blizzard doesn't want to give them back to her. They gave her like a couple things, and she's like, I'm still missing like 80% of what I had in there, and it's just frustrating because they don't want to do anything.
Well, like the part that's I think most upsetting for me is like I feel like they were doing like really good listening to player feedback on a lot of the issues with everything going on. Like they've changed actually quite a bit since the release, and now it just kind of seems like they could like care less, like as long as you're paying your sub, because like there's actually been a lot of bugs lately. So like one of the other biggest ones is if you're a crafter, there's a certain kind of cloth bracers, like two different ones, and that you can't like every time you go to craft it, it just gives you like a blank screen. And if you go to their forums, dude, there's like thread upon thread upon thread of people talking about these issues for at least a month, or for at least a month or two. And it kind of seems like I said, like Blizzard doesn't really care, about the product, about it, as long as you're paying your $15 a month. There was an issue with if you play rated PvP, that the whole rated button was grayed out and you couldn't even highlight it or select it, and they told you, oh, you got to wait till the next reset. It's like I remember the days of being able to call them on the you could call them and get a GM on the phone, and they would help fix issues. And now it's like everything's so automated, and it's just like I said, if you're paying your $15, like, fuck you guys, we got your money already. We're gonna not give a crap about a majority of these issues that you guys are bringing forward.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's what, man. Ubisoft. We had talked about a few weeks ago how we thought like Ubisoft should go private. So Bloomberg sources claim that there is a minority investor that they're insisting that they're really like pushing, or they're exploring ways to stabilize the company after the release of some very not so successful games. And one of the big possibilities that were discussed was taking them private. And I think we both agreed on it, saying that it would be the most beneficial for them, especially like right now. So I guess when this report actually got released about them talking about going private, their share price actually increased by nearly 40%, which is surprising. I would have thought it would have done the opposite, especially considering that it's publicly traded. Now, one of the biggest, so going private isn't a bad thing, because actually one of the biggest game development companies, which is Steam, they're privately owned, and look at how they're doing. So I think if they were to go private, I think it would take away some of that pressure about keeping all those, investors happy, and help them, get back to making great games again, because it has been a while since they put out a good game. So like, what's your thoughts on them going private? And do you think like it would actually benefit them a lot more?
The good thing about going private is the organization will be able to kind of stop necessarily thinking, like kind of like how you were saying, what the investors want and what the investors want to see from the organization. They can kind of focus more on the art and not so much care if whether the game is gonna sell well or the game is gonna get good reception from critics and consumers. It's now you're just kind of focusing solely on, okay, we're just going to try to put out the best game possible, and that's all we're going to try to do.
Yeah.
I think it benefits them to go private in a sense. I guess the good thing too for investors is normally when a company goes private, you'll see stock prices go up because the company has to buy back your shares, and usually it's at a premium. So whenever there's any kind of possibility of an organization going private, you'll almost always see their stock prices tend to kind of spike quite a bit. So if you're an investor, not an investment advice, but it's definitely
I gotta put that tag in there.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on, because again, like the company has to buy back your shares, and this is probably what's going to happen. It does seem like there's a bit of some corporate takeover ish trying to happen, and who knows whether or not that happens. I think it's gonna leave the Ubisoft group kind of, they're really gonna have no choice but to go private in a sense, because I guess this group is just continuously buying shares, trying to kind of push them out.
Well, do you think that more game development companies should go private, or do you think it's like a case by case thing?
I mean, most are private. Most of your bigger groups tend to be private, just because Usually a company will only go public if they're trying to raise capital. You're trying to get a bunch of money relatively quickly, and that's a really easy way to get money, is to go public. People buy your shares and the company gets to use that money to invest in the company and kind of continue to grow the corporation. Versus if you're private, then you have to kind of go, I guess, a little bit more boots on the ground and try to find investors. Yeah, you have to find the investors and kind of convince them to give you money, and then potentially they'll get some sort of ROI, but more than likely probably not. It's less focused on what your shareholders think when you're private. Once you also don't have to really give out any information on what you're doing, whether it's your earnings. You could be a little bit more quiet with all that stuff when you're private. So that is like the good thing about being private, and that's why you tend to see a lot of organizations like Twitter recently went private, just because there was a lot of negativity with Elon kind of jumping in, and he didn't want investors to kind of potentially sabotage that acquisition.
Yeah, I agree. Now, okay, I don't know if you know this or not, but do you know if Bungie is private?
So they're owned by Sony now. So no.
See, it would have been nice if, I feel like if they would have maybe went private before that maybe they could have like been putting out some better games.
Well, I think they were thinking about it after they separated from Activision Blizzard.
Yeah.
But it wasn't going well from what I recall. And I think that's kind of when Sony jumped in. Sony was really trying to kind of plant their feet in the live service portion of video gaming. Yeah. And Destiny 2 was just it's a big IP, and Sony really just wanted to be involved in Destiny 2 and potentially Halo if anything.
Well, Sony usually does a pretty good job. I mean, there's been a few misses, but they've always like been good about putting out good games.
Yeah.
So before we get into our next topic, don't forget to stay connected with us on X at NoBS Podcast GG, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel at NoBS Podcast GG, and also rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So it's funny you just mentioned Destiny. Destiny 2 just had a trailer for their Revenant. Now the trailer looks really good, and after watching it, surprised that I've actually never played the game. I know we've talked about it before. I've seen videos on it, but it's a first-person shooter with MMO elements, and it actually looks like something that would be right up my alley. So I actually downloaded it before we started the podcast today. That way, when I get back from vacation, I can spend some time in the game. So, what did you think of the trailer?
It looks super cool. That's one thing that Destiny, in my opinion, is the best worst game of all time. It does a lot of things really well, but a lot of things really poorly that kind of just ruin the experience for me. I have maybe on Steam probably like 40-50 hours, and then on console maybe like another 40-50 hours. So a decent amount of time played in the game. Not a whole lot of time spent in the end game, but one of the things that I think Destiny does really well is their end game. Like their raids tend to be so fun. Like I've spent, while I have not personally played the raids, I've spent hours and hours just watching and consuming Destiny 2 raid content. It just looks so fun. One of the things that kind of really put me off with Destiny, it's an MMO RPG, but it didn't have a group finder. It didn't have a way to really find groups to play. You would have to go on like Reddit and forums to find people to queue up. Yeah. I think it's something that they recently added, but it's like when you think of an MMORPG, it's like you're making it harder for these people to group up and play your end game content, and you're forcing them to go to these outside sources just to find people to play the game. The guns are amazing. The guns feel really good. Everything feels really good about it. I know I haven't played any of the PvP portion in Destiny 2, but in Destiny 1 it was relatively fun. So there's a lot that the game does really, really well. And this, I think it's a raid because it's separated into multiple acts. So I'm guessing it's a raid. I think there's 3 acts. The first act has been released, Act 2 is coming, and then Act 3 is coming. So Act 2 is coming 11/19, Act 3 is 1/7.
That's like
but
way away from me.
yeah,
Because they're talking about they're not going to be doing another Destiny, right?
I don't think so. I don't necessarily know. Bungie fired a bunch of people. They they had a bunch of people kind of merge within Sony to work on something else. So who knows? Who knows what the plan is for Destiny? In a sense, like it's tough because it really is a fun game. Like again, even though I've never done any of the end game, I can spend hours just doing random missions and random dungeons, just running around shooting things, and it's fun. It's a blast.
Well, I think what they should do is kind of pull a World of Warcraft where you just have like the one game and then just constantly build on it with the new more and more expansion. I don't really think that they need a Destiny 3. And then like I said, now that Sony bought them out, they got told pretty much by Sony they need to get their heads out of their asses and run Destiny 2 like a business. So I think maybe like this is the change that they need to kind of pick back up, and start winning back their player base. Because I looked on Steam, said as I was downloading, I mean, the game itself, they had like 70,000 concurrent players right now, like in game, and that's just on Steam. So it's like, I mean, it's not terrible, but
the thing it does really, it's very much locked into. There's things that kind of lock you out, whether it's like a lot of stuff is locked behind a paywall, basically. It's a free to play game, but you're unable to play the game unless you buy this expansion. And one of the negative things that kind of a lot of the players were very upset is that as these new expansions were getting released, the old expansions were basically unplayable. So people that paid whatever $70 for this expansion,
you have to buy the newest one.
And now you would still need that old expansion to get certain things from that expansion, but the content is unplayable. So it's like you get the newest expansion and you would try to go back and play some old content and you just can't do it. It's like
that would suck, dude.
It's like if you had World of Warcraft and you were trying to go to like MOP, like Pandaria, and you just can't go to Pandaria. You're just like, oh, what the heck is going on? And again, it's not the greatest thing. A lot of people hate the microtransactions and how characters and guns were locked behind it. And I think it's gotten better from what I've heard, but it's still, a lot of people have, it left a sour taste in their mouths. Yeah. And it's difficult for these people to kind of come back and want to spend time playing this game when, again, the shooter MMO genre, looter shooter genre there's a lot of games that are trying to do the same thing, but I think Destiny does it the best out of all of them. It's like you have Destiny 2, you have Warframe, you have First Ascendant that just came out. There's probably more, but like out of all of them, I think Destiny 2 is just by far, in a way, the best one.
So when's the last time you actually played it?
I think a couple weeks ago.
Okay, so let me ask you this question then, just real quick. Let me ask you this question. What do you think could be added into the game, or what do you think they could do to bring you back or bring more players back to them? Or is there really nothing they could do?
I think they need to focus more on new players. I think it's difficult to try to bring back old players without releasing new content.
Yeah.
The difficulty too with new players is, like any MMO, it's very overwhelming when you jump into a new MMO and you have no idea what's going on. You're like, what is this? What am I looking at? What am I supposed to do? You have like 10 different areas that you can go to, like all quests everywhere, icons everywhere, and you have no idea what to do. And a lot of people will just turn the game off at that point. They're like, I'm not doing this.
This is too much.
Yeah, I'm not touching this at all.
I mean, but that's kind of how it felt like with Throne of Liberty too, like, right? You're like, what the hell is all this stuff? But like you kind of explained, like if you were a new player, I mean, it's going to be confusing. Or do you think they just need to do a better job?
They need to do a better job. Like that's one of the things that I think Warframe does better than Destiny. It's, even though Warframe is very, very overwhelming as well for a new player. Like I had to look up a lot of things too, but I think Warframe has a very clear path to, like, if you're doing the main storyline, this is the path that you follow. Literally everything unlocks after you beat the previous zone. So it's very linear. There's no real ways to kind of go off the path and not know what you're supposed to do next. Like, yeah, you can encounter a certain scenario where it's like, it's really hard. I'm very under leveled. Okay, let me go farm some more stuff. Let me go farm some materials and do some other stuff. And it tells you, okay, I want to farm this material. These are the zones that I need to go to farm this material, so I can craft this one thing that I need to get stronger to be able to beat the next zone. Destiny 2 doesn't do that. It's just like you just get so much stuff all right off the bat, and you're just like, okay, what do I do?
Is Destiny one of those like crafting gear things too, like Throne of Liberty and all that, or like where you have to craft your gear, or is it
no?
All loot? It's all loot, right?
Loot, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I didn't even know. Like I said, I've never even played the game. Never even played the game.
Yeah, again, like just watch some of the raids on YouTube when you get a chance. I mean, they look like they're a blast, and it's like if I had a friend group that was still very much into Destiny 2, I used to play a lot of Destiny with some friends, and I think Destiny 2 kind of just jaded them to know beyond belief, and they just don't want to touch the game anymore unless something like major has changed.
So do you think that this dungeon raid expansion is going to bring you back into playing it, or at least you're going to buy it and like check it out?
It might. Like again, like I said, Destiny is fun. Like every couple weeks I decide to kind of jump in and like start a new character, and again it's one of those things where it's like if I don't play it like enough, I forget where I'm at and what I'm supposed to do, so I just delete the character and I just restart a new one. I never get far enough to where it's like it's gonna really hurt me to just restart. So it's just easier for me to like, okay, I just put like 6-7 hours into this character, and then I log off, I uninstall the game, and I don't play it again for like a couple weeks, couple months, whatever. And I go back and I was like, crap, what am I supposed to do now? Okay, let's just restart. Let's just go again.
Well, not to like keep digging into it, but like, so how long would it take for you to like, I guess, level up? Is it like a max? Is like you have to level up, or like how exactly does that work?
So you have abilities that you level, and then you get better gear. It's very similar to kind of like any other MMO. It's as you kind of progress, you get better gear and you get better abilities, and that's kind of the whole point. It's like once you get to a certain gear score, you're strong enough to be able to go into these raids, and you go into the raids and you beat the raids, and then that's it. That's the content right there. And you can farm the raids to just continue to get better gear, but most people, once they just beat the raid once, usually it's like,
go to the next one.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. So Overwatch Mobile has been confirmed to be in development now with no actual release date announced. I do think that the development of this can bring a lot of good to the franchise, as Overwatch 2 wasn't nearly as successful as the first one, and I think like this might be a move in the right step to bring back some of that popularity to the franchise. You know, they were actually going to do like a whole Netflix series on the Overwatch, but Blizzard sued Netflix. Now, considering how well Call of Duty Mobile went, you know, with their over 50 million pre-registrations and how it's exceeded $3 billion in terms of revenue, I think this is going to be a good thing. You know, especially like I said, with how popular mobile gaming is. And I was wondering though, with mobile games, like I was wondering like how like the movement and the abilities were going to act, as you know, I don't think it'll be as fluid as it is like on PC and console, especially when you got heroes like Zarya and Winston that have like, you know, their targeted ults, you know, and some others. Feels like you're going to need like 20 fingers to be able to do everything you need. So like with mobile gaming on the rise and being super popular in countries like China, do you think it's a good idea to make Overwatch available on mobile? And is it even like something that you'd really be interested in playing?
So I honestly think it's a great idea. Again, like you said, COD Mobile was huge for Activision Blizzard. I read a report saying it actually did better than the PC and console version of COD Mobile. And again, I think a big reason that it probably did as well, and mobile gaming is just constantly growing. Mobile gaming in general is huge in China, in Japan, and in India specifically, especially in these regions where it's harder to be able to afford a PlayStation 5, an Xbox S or X, and a PC, people kind of play a lot of their games on mobile.
Yeah, because everybody's got a phone.
Yeah. And especially nowadays, it's like you see companies that are releasing like next gen phones at a much more affordable price, and these phones will last you 10, 15, 20 years, and you can use them for everything. It's not necessarily just gaming, but being able to play these games is great. It's awesome. Again, like you said, I don't necessarily know how they're going to do the movement. I wonder if they're going to release a different version of the game and not the same Overwatch 2 that we get on PC. Who knows? Because
like Call of Duty Mobile is totally different than what you'd play on your PC or Xbox too.
Yeah, and you see, I don't know if you've ever seen some of like the pro play for like COD Mobile and like PUBG Mobile. It's like they have these like crazy attachments on their phone.
Oh God!
That's almost like it turns your phone into like a controller.
Really?
So it's like you're playing as like basically a controller, and some people even plug their phones into a screen, so they're not even looking at their phones. It's just like your phone is just your controller. Is it even
mobile gaming?
It's mobile gaming in a sense because you're still technically playing on a phone, but yeah, it's weird. But I wonder if that's kind of how the pro play is going to look like. It's like I said, it's great for the organization because it's gonna bring the game to a different audience. Like I've played Overwatch on the Switch, and it was clunky fun, but still it's a good time. So, Overwatch is.
Oh, here you go. You finish what you were
I was just gonna say, Overwatch 2 is it's a super fun game. It's just again one of those another example of like a company just overpromised. They said they were going to do all these different things and just never did any of it. And again, the player base was very upset and just decided to kind of abandon the game.
Well, that's why they had to scrap their the whole PvE idea. Is like nobody was interested in it anymore. So like, so like, what are your thoughts on like mobile gaming as a whole? Are there any games that you really play on mobile, or like, is it kind of like a thing that I know, okay, you probably do like Hearthstone, but like, if this were to come to mobile and you were to go on like a road trip, like, what's your thought? Like, what's your like thoughts on like mobile gaming as a whole? I mean, I know you said it's really popular in like India and China and Japan because not everybody has the PC. So do you think mobile gaming as a whole is like really good, or what? Like what's your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I play an MMO on my phone. I got sucked into it with some buddies of mine that I play WoW, and my buddy's PC broke, and we were kind of just looking for something to do. And again, it just fit perfectly. And me and you have played it together on PC as well, Terrace Land.
Oh my God, I had a feeling you were going to say Terrace Land.
It's such a fun game. It's not as fun on PC. Don't get me wrong. I think it's one of those things where it's like, there's just so many different options on PC, but mobile, it's like there's so many times where I'm like in a pointless meeting at work on Zoom, and I'm just sitting there. I'll turn my camera off, and I'm just sitting there just playing games, because it's like I'll be stuck in like a 2-3 hour meeting where they're going over like stuff that has nothing to do with me, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm turning my camera off, and I'm just gonna play some games. This
episode is gonna be uploaded to Spotify, so they're gonna hear you saying this, dude. Oh, so okay. So do you think then that like some of these games that aren't doing so well could like benefit if they went, if they developed a mobile version of them?
In a sense, yes. I think the mobile market is almost like an ocean of untapped possibilities. There's a lot of opportunity to do well. Again, like the biggest games in mobile right now is your COD Mobile, your the League of Legends. It's like Mobile Legends, right?
Yeah,
I think it's called. And there's probably another couple of MOBAs. It's as the phone technology gets better and better, I'm sure we're gonna start seeing crazier and crazier games. It's not like when we were kids and we were playing Snake, and so I definitely think it's awesome. It's awesome to see this.
You think Concord could have been a little more successful if they
No.
No.
No, because again, like Concord, for all the negative that's surrounding the game, it was a good game. Like the gameplay looked good. Everything about it looked good. The graphics looked good. The way the gameplay looked good. The characters were probably some of the biggest issue, and obviously I think a lot of people were upset with the wokeness and the price tag. There's a bunch of things that kind of went wrong with this. I don't necessarily think if it was a mobile game it would do any better. I think there was just already so many negatives, they kind of outweighed the positives, that it just didn't make sense.
Yeah, you can't really change the wokeness of it, being on a mobile game. It's gonna stay the same way.
Yeah, and who knows, like if it was still like super woke and it was free, maybe more people would have played it.
No, I can agree with that. So before we get into our last topic, if you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to stay connected with us on X at NoBS Podcast GG, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel at NoBS Podcast GG, and also rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So we've been talking a lot of it about Blizzard. So want us to take a step back in time. A old employee by the name of Jason Schreier he just wrote a new book, and in this book he had mentioned that it brought up the idea back in 2000 for Blizzard to turn Battle.net into a digital storefront for like a variety of PC games. And this was just 3 years before Valve released the Counter-Strike client that grew into the megastore that Steam is today. Now, the idea never made it past Blizzard's upper management, and it makes you wonder, like, if they're kicking themselves in the foot because Battle.net could have been like this huge online game store, instead of just offering only Activision games like they have on it now. So, Blizzard even right now like has its games on Steam, including Overwatch 2, Diablo 4, and then the newest Diablo 4 expansion, Vessel of Hatred. And I always laugh at situations like these because I wonder if it was almost like an ego thing with the upper management of Blizzard, if they were kind of like, at the time, like, this wasn't our idea, so it's a bad idea, so we're not going to do it because it's not the idea that we came up with. So I wonder, like, what's your take on them not listening to this guy? And do you think that they made a big mistake by not doing it?
It was definitely, I would say long term, yes, it was a mistake. I think short term, no. I think they really wanted to focus on their IPs, and at the time, it was the correct idea. I mean, World of Warcraft was insane.
Yeah,
it was the biggest game for like 10 years, right? Like, I think until probably Fortnite came out, there was probably nothing that had the amount of players that were playing one specific game. Then you had Overwatch 2, you had Diablo, you had StarCraft. So I'm sure Blizzard was doing great. Like, but had they kind of jumped into this opportunity, like, who knows where we would be? I think the big difference too, that, and the reason Steam is so successful is Steam is almost like a community. It's not just a place to buy and play your games. It started off as a way for players that are modding games to be able to host their mods and allow people to play modded games. Again, Counter-Strike was a mod, and it started off as a mod, and Valve really wanted to give these other modders an opportunity to showcase their work. And I don't necessarily think Blizzard would have done the same. It's one of the reasons too, a couple of years back when Epic launched their kind of competitor to Steam, they pushed really hard to steal a lot of these games from Steam and basically forcing games to be released solely on Epic and not on Steam. So if you're someone trying to play specific games, you would have to buy it on Epic and then play it on Epic. But one of the reasons Epic doesn't do as well is, again, it's not centered around this kind of community aspect. Yeah. There's no, like, Steam has reviews. Before you even buy a game, you can just go in, look at the reviews, see what people are saying. They have a forum built in. They have discussions. They have workshops. They have everything that you could ever want for a game. Like, you don't have to Google a game before you purchase it. You can just buy it And one of the really cool things too that Steam adds is they let you return a game if you buy it and you don't like it.
Yeah, but there's stipulations on that though.
No, I mean I've never had an issue returning a game. Like,
it has to be within like, I think like
2 hours.
Week. No, I have games that I had. I promise you. I actually just tried. Don't get mad. I tried to refund Baldur's Gate 3 because I have like an hour.
So if you've owned it for longer than 2 weeks, and if you've played it for less than 2 hours, which again, that's perfectly fine. Like if you buy something at a store and you try to return it after 2 weeks, more than likely it's not going to get returned. So they give you plenty of opportunity to say, okay, I'm not gonna enjoy this game. I'm just gonna return it. And I've had plenty of times where I buy a game, I play it, I don't like it, I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna return this and not necessarily worry about it.
I wonder how many games you would have if you didn't return any.
I've honestly never. In terms of the amount of games that I've returned, it's probably maybe like 10-ish games that I've returned.
Oh, okay. That's not as bad as I thought it was.
And there's been games that I've returned that like I end up buying later on, and I end up enjoying them. So it's not necessarily that it's like, sometimes I buy a game that's like $60 and I'm just like, oh, this isn't really worth $60. Let me return it and I'll buy it when it's on sale. And that's usually what I end up doing.
So, like, one thing, too, I like how you bring up community, because we've said, like, that's, like, a big part of success in, like, a lot of these games and companies and stuff like that is, like, the whole community aspect. My favorite part about the whole Steam, storefront is, like, you can actually post people, you have the reviews. People are giving, like, their honest reviews about the game. You have people taking actual screenshots of a game because, like, let's be honest, when games put out like their trailers, it's not always exactly like how the game plays, so you kind of get a skewed version of the game. So it's nice to see stuff like that, and then it's like right now too, like you said, you have other storefronts like Epic Games, and like they seem to be doing pretty well. So like I'm surprised like Blizzard hasn't already made a move in that direction already. So like, do you think that it's too late for Blizzard to do something similar, or do you think they should just stay what they're doing and keeping it like just their games and only sell their games on their store?
Oh, 100%. I think it's too late. I think the industry is kind of already set. Like Steam is this is what everyone is kind of aiming to be.
Yeah,
even Epic, like you have games that were Epic exclusives that are now releasing on Steam because people just aren't buying games on Epic. The Epic launcher is terrible. Like there's so many instances where you can Google Epic Store fails and like all this other stuff, and you'll see tons and tons of videos of like people can't get games to open, people can't play games with friends, and there's a bunch of situations where that happens, and people just hate that. And even Blizzard wanted to get their games into more people's hands, that they decided to release these games on Steam. And it's just more people are playing PC games on Steam. Steam is the gold standard, and it's just such a huge. They're so far ahead right now. I just don't think there's any opportunity for Steam to, or not Steam, for Blizzard to ever really try and catch up.
So do you think then that they should be putting more of their games on the Steam store? For example, World of Warcraft or what was it, Heroes of the Storm, stuff like that.
Yes, I think any game that they can get on Steam, they should. The difficulty with WoW is how to manage the subscription, and I'm sure that's probably why they don't have World of Warcraft on.
You got Final Fantasy.
Well, I think Steam might get a cut of the subscription. I'm not 100% sure. But I just don't know how that would work in terms of like if you have a subscription-based game and it's run through the Steam portal, if like Steam would say get a cut of that subscription fee, whether it's like 10%, 5%, whatever it is. Because Steam is getting a portion of the game proceeds.
Yeah.
So like if you're paying $50 for a game, Steam is getting a portion of it. So Blizzard already kind of said, okay, that's fine. You guys can get that. So I don't know if they would necessarily do WoW because they would lose out on some of that subscription money.
You know that they would up the subscription cost, dude. You know they will.
I don't think so. I mean, that's the one, I guess, positive for Blizzard is throughout this entire tenure of World of Warcraft is they have not upped the subscription once. It's been the same price since 2005.
Yeah.
Which is great, because if you think about it, like everything else that's subscription based has gone up. Netflix was $10, now it's almost like
I don't even
$20.
I don't even like talking about that crap because it pisses me off so much, dude. Every single it seems like every year you get some kind of notification from like Netflix or Hulu, like, oh, we're upping our prices.
Yeah,
like I remember Netflix being like, I mean, dude, I could have sworn it used to be like $6 or $7, and that was when you could get DVDs sent to your house too.
Yeah.
You got anything else you want to kind of hit on that with the whole Blizzard Steam thing, or?
No.
All right, so we got some upcoming games. We got the Just Dance 2025 edition coming out on October 14th on PlayStation and Xbox, and on the 15th for the Switch. I also got A Quiet Place, The Road Ahead, comes out October 17th on all platforms. Now, there was quite a abundant amount of games on Steam that I think you guys all need to check out that are on sale. You got Power Wash Simulator at 30% off, which is in at $17.49 right now. You got Teardown 50% off at $14.99. Assassin's Creed Origins 85% off at $8.99. Assassin's Creed Unity is 75% off at $70 at $7.49. And Portal 2, which I'm about to buy right after this, is 90% off at $1. And that's it for today's episode of No BS. If you enjoyed the unfiltered conversations, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube at NoBS Podcast GG. And don't forget to stay connected with us on X at NoBS Podcast GG for all the latest updates and more. Catch us on TikTok as well at NoBS Podcast GG. We appreciate you listening, and we'll be back next week with more straight talk. No BS.